Here's an interesting article from the archives from the Voice of Ethiopia, dated Saturday, June 22, 1940. Now, by this time, our brother, the special emissary to Black America, had already passed on. And we're speaking of Dr. Malako Emmanuel Bayin, but this particular article here from the newspaper, which speaks about a prophet and speaking about how His Imperial Majesty, it says, in season and out of time, week after week, have we quoted in our articles, in our editorial, the prophetic words of His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie, the first Emperor of Ethiopia, representing him to the public as we see him, as we revere him, a truly modern prophet. Ever and anon did our deceased editor, the late Malako E. Bayin, take to task newspaper editors and writers and radio commentators for belittling this great, wise, and godly king. Often in these columns did Malako E. Bayin, with prolific and virulent pen, upbraid writers and commentators for using prefixes ex and depose before emperor. Stoutly did our late editor tell the world that His Majesty was still Emperor of Ethiopia, that he will return to his kingdom, and that his words will come true. But alas, despite all this, the critics and mockers scorned our protestations, continued their derision, just like Psalm 2. These scoffers were to be found not only among other races, but in our own race. In other words, black people, so-called black devils. It is for the special benefit of the latter, who have scoffed at their own kind, may respect the words of others, sad but true, that we reproduce part of an article which appeared in the feature column, quote, "I'd Rather Be Right" by Samuel Gafton on Monday, June 17th, by courtesy of the New York Post. Now, as you can see, this article is somewhat well worn, and we'll try to read what we can read here, where it says the people of France will now something themselves. How did it happen? Will now maybe ask themselves, how did it happen? For some of the people of France, it will be an academic question to while away an hour in a concentration camp. But some of this, as you can say, but the question, something or an answer. But as we move through it, this paragraph is somewhat hard to read. It comes down to here, which is a little bit easier to read and more according to this particular statement of the King of Kings, where it's in the masthead. So this is how we can even reconstruct what's in the article. It says, "Do the peoples of the world not yet realize that by fighting on until the bitter end, I am not only performing my sacred duty to my people, my holy duty to my people, but standing guard in the last citadel of collective security?" This is the words of His Imperial Majesty. A prophet, it says, "We may look for the answer in many places, and some of them are strange places. In Addis Ababa, for example, during those last days of April 1936, when the swift Italian columns approached, as the swift German columns approached Paris the other day, and the Emperor Haile Selassie sent a last appeal to England and France, Here is what he said, and the words seemed to burn. Do the peoples of the world not realize I am standing guard in the last citadel of collective security? I must still hold on until my tardy allies appear. If they never come, then I say prophetically and without bitterness, the West will perish. End quote. It is perplexing. He was a true prophet. And this is found right down here in this article, right here, this particular article from Saturday, June 22nd, 1940, from the official organ of the Ethiopian World Federation, known as the Voice of Ethiopia, official organ of the Ethiopian World Federation, incorporated, quote, "It is better to die free than live in slavery." And over here it's interesting, it says, right will prevail. Right will prevail. And then over here it says, Save Ethiopia. This is the city edition. I think this is volume 4, number 22, and here it has on the front page a picture of His Imperial Majesty, and underneath it says, a prophet. And even from that time, the black peoples of the world, especially those in America, those who were following in the true light of Ethiopianism, they recognized and they realized that. In this article in 1940 was after the passing of Dr. Malako Emmanuel Bayan, and they were still keeping on in the light and in the way left by the true emissary, the special emissary, the one who was sent to we in the wilderness by His Imperial Majesty, and recognizing that in addition to being the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, elect of God, King of Kings of Ethiopia, he was also a prophet. Do the peoples of the world not realize that I am standing guard in the last citadel of collective security? I must still hold on until my tardy allies appear. If they never come, I say prophetically and without bitterness, the West will perish. And the message is still true today.